Right, welcome back, Jerry. Okay, so let's get started on this magical process of healing the me I see in you. This is from, we should say this is from the book Closeness in Love, yeah? Closenessinlove.com. I'll put that on the screen so that folks know where to go.
Yes.
So start the story with the book, Closeness in Love. Sounds a great title.
Oh, thank you. And the book is available in a bunch of different formats. We'll be using the single-sided US PDF. So if somebody is using the European one, the page numbers might be off a little, but we'll pretty much be going by the chapters anyway.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the book is called Closeness in Love, and it's by Lovers in Training, which is at loversintraining.org. And the whole idea of Lovers in Training is to teach us to be deeper in love towards each other and God and ourselves. And
so not just romantic love, Jerry, yeah? We should make that point. It's
not just romantic love at all. I mean, you certainly, it teaches about romantic love, but love for God doesn't have to be romantic, although a lot of the Sufis, for example, a lot of the poets by the Sufi poets would actually make love poets to God as though God was their lover. Yeah. And just deepening love in every way, shape, or form is a way to deepen us. And, going back, for example, to the biblical teachings, when the rabbi, I don't know if it was a rabbi, I think it was a lawyer actually, he asked Jesus, what is the most important teaching in all the scripture? And he said, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first great commandment. And the second great commandment is equally great. Love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have heard that quote many times, but what they haven't heard was the line he said after that, which was, on these two great commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Well, what is all the law and the prophets? That's everything else in the Bible. And so if you're trying to study scripture, and by the way, I think this really applies to any religion, but you don't have that love for God and love for self down, it's like trying to learn long division without knowing how to add or count. And so, we sometimes refer to this as fundamental Christianity, but not fundamentalist, but fundamental, just like the notes of the scale are fundamental to music and the letters of the alphabet are fundamental to the language. Yeah. This is like the fundamental piece. And so we really have taken all the rest of the doctrine and put it aside, and we just focus on deepening and deepening in these ways of love. Yeah. And so the closeness of love is one of the ways that it does that. And just so you know, I'm on the copyright page of the book. Well, the book is what's called copylefted, which means it's available for people to use it and share it as long as they give attribution. And if they include it in with anything else, they also have to make that also available to be shared. Yes. So you can use it, but you have to make the free version available to people. You can't hide the fact that there's a freebie available. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly, because we want it to be shared. And Bob gave this work to me without any charge, and to me, I consider it priceless. And to put any price on it would devalue it. Yes. And so that's why it's out there for people to use and share, and we hope people would take it and translate. We'd love to have more people translate it too, particularly the processes. Yes, good. So then we do have a scripture quote in there, I am my beloved, and my beloved is mine. And that's from Songs of Solomon. And the dedication is to you who are becoming a better lover of God, your neighbor, and yourself, by becoming a better lover in your romantic relationship. So we utilize the romantic relationship as a basis for deepening, and it is a path of healing. Obviously, there are some people on paths of celibacy that don't want a romantic relationship, and this will help for people who are already in one or trying to create one. So I'm down to the introduction now, which is on page 11. And it says the book's intentionally short. You can probably read it very fast in 1 or 2 settings. It doesn't try to be politically correct. We use short, simple American names. For couples, we have their names begin with the same first letter. But, if you're from another culture with a longer name, or if your partner's name doesn't begin with the same first letter of yours, it'll still work. We use heterosexual couples, usually married, but that doesn't necessarily mean it won't work for other kinds of relationships. And even for non-romantic relationships, how do you deal with your boss or your kids, your neighbor that you're not having a romantic relationship with? A lot of these concepts will apply. It's not a formal writing. The references are in the back rather than having any footnotes and the attributions, and it doesn't use formal English. We use things like the words isn't and doesn't. So it's designed to be really simple.
Yeah.
So
great read, by the way.
Back
it's
to the
very easy to read. It's a great
very
read.
easy to read here. Yeah. I'm going to just get into chapter 1 because chapter 1 has the real core concepts. And I'm going to actually read a couple lines verbatim. Our desire for closeness. We enter into love relationships because we want to be close, or so we say. We all have our comfort zones for closeness in love. With too much closeness or too little, we're uncomfortable. And as with all things in life, we have our own preferences. Some people like a lot, others prefer less. There isn't anything right or wrong. It's whatever works for you or your partner. And in this book, you'll learn how to understand it, you'll learn how to measure it, and you'll learn how to apply it to get the kind of love that you want in your existing relationship or to create one. And you'll also learn about fears of closeness and fears of separate. There are unhealthy cravings for both closeness and separateness. And when you heal those wounds out of the way, then it's easier, without those unhealed wounds, to be freer. And that's what the tools are there. So we want them to you to use them and heal them. And when would now be a good time? I'm back on the screen here. But that was the essence of chapter 1. Do we have time to go into the little bits of chapter 2?
Oh yeah, let's take some of the concepts and see how it pans out. Concept,
because there are different kinds of closeness, and just to have an easier understanding, we broke it into 5 different divisions, and they're artificial. We could have used more, we could have used less, and there's certainly some overlap. For example, certainly we could have combined sexual closeness with physical closeness, but there are some difference. For example, there are people who might like sex but not like to hold hands. On the other hand, there might be somebody who loves to hold hands but doesn't necessarily want to have sex. And of course, there's some people in some religions that don't want to have any marriage before sex, so that wouldn't apply.
Any sex before marriage, you mean? You got that the wrong way.
Oh, yes, they have that.
Don't worry.
Some people have marriage before sex, too. So by dividing it into these 5 chunks, it gives us a better understanding of the closeness. And, how do you eat a watermelon? You eat it one bite at a time. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about physical closeness first. And we use Amy and Al as an example. They love being together. They walk arm in arm. They sit next to each other when they watch TV. But Betty and Bill, they like to keep their distance. She likes to watch her favorite show in the family room, and he watches his in the den. They keep separate bedrooms. So, different people approach physical. And there's lots of, and we could take almost each of these examples and elaborate on them a lot. I'm going to kind of skim through them. But Keith, if you see anything that you want to elaborate on, please jump in.
Yeah, run through the basic types of relationship you're going to talk about. You didn't actually lay them out. You jumped in first with the physical.
Yeah, so, and as an example, and obviously there's different kinds of sexual closeness. And intellectual is where you share ideas with one another. And emotional is where you share your feelings with one another. And then, there's a spiritual closeness. Some people like to pray together and do their spiritual work together, and other people don't want to share that with anybody. And then, there are custom blends. For example, Tina and Tom, they love to sit close and touch each other when they're together, but they don't want to talk about their feelings. Whereas Violet and Vic, they love to share their feelings, but they don't like much physical closeness. And Wendy and Walt, they love to share closeness in every area except their spirituality, where they follow different spiritual paths. Yeah. And so
the important thing to say, isn't it, Jerry, is that the important thing to say here, there's no right or wrong. It's just being aware that people are different. You can't say less of this and more of that is the correct way to be.
No, but what happened, and you're absolutely right, but often people are having difficulties in their relationship and they don't know why. And by understanding these concepts, guys, this is what's going on. she wants more closeness here and I'm not giving to her, or she wants more space here and I'm not giving it to her. And by just understanding this concept, in fact, Harville Hendricks found that a lot of times people were fighting about something else when really it was a fight about closeness that they didn't recognize. And so by just understanding that dynamic, in fact, people talk about, well, you know, they're looking for a partner. Oh, I want somebody I can go bowling with. Well, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you can go bowling with your buddy, but I'd much rather have a partner that I can have other kinds of closeness with than bowling. But people will often match up thinking that that's what's going to give them the closeness they want, when in fact, not really what they want. And this, again, helps give a better understanding on that.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have time to cover chapter 4?
Yeah, let's move on. Just one more.
We'll do one more. Okay. Actually, chapter 3, I take that back. The ingredients of closeness. So you can look at closeness different ways. Depth, frequency, and duration. And they each apply to all. So how deep you want to go. Some people really want to go, like, you know, we use the example here in intellectual closeness, Angela and Art. They like to explore their eyes deeply. What about this? What about that? But Bonnie and Bob, they just want to cover the basics. Then you got frequency. Do you want to have that same closeness a lot? They just want to do it once in a while. And then duration. Eric and Eve can go on and for hours sharing their feelings, but Faith and Fred, they like to share their feelings, but only in small bursts. And then you can blend it. You know, some people like a lot of duration, a lot of frequency, but, you know, not so deep. And however it works. Again, these are all ways of blending and understanding the various kinds of how to understand closeness in ways most people haven't even thought of.
Right. Yeah. Okay, great. So far, let's take a break and we'll come back for another segment and go deep diving, Jerry. Okay. Thanks for so far.
Thank you, Keith.